Yo, what's up guys? It's Nathan here. I wanted to give you a quick sound design tutorial. I was actually here right now, just this very moment. I was just doing some sound design experimentation, and I noticed this trick that I do. I've been doing quite a bit, and I haven't written it down, and I'm out of paper to write down in my journal because it's full of awesome power and awesomeness. So I figured I would just make a tutorial, that way it would become immortalized on the internet. So I'm going to show you this really cool technique that you can use to give instruments movement. You can use it on anything from rolling bass lines to hi-hats to just about anything you can think of. You can put it on pads, you can put it in soup. This is amazing. It's as good as MSG without making you tired. So I'm going to show you what that trick is, and it's really simple. I've actually got it happening here on one of my analog character synths, and pretty much our character EQs. What I use these kind of EQs for, this is like an SSL EQ. I use these EQs for character. I do not use them for transparent effect. I typically don't use them very much for cutting. I use them for boosting because it's a very noticeable kind of quality on the boost. And this is a very kind of rounded resonance. I'm going to show you what it sounds like on the synth here, and then I'm going to show you the kind of automation effect that I'm talking about. So what you'll notice is I have a 15 dB gain with a very kind of narrow Q, as you can see by the little tiny symbol right there. Very narrow Q. And what's going to happen is I'm going to move the frequency band around, and you're going to hear that sound, this rolling bass line, which just sounds like this. Really cool. Really cool. I have this EQ actually placed after a reverb that's on there. So let's turn that reverb off. And I'm going to show you the effect of this. I'm going to just automate this, move this filter thing just a little bit. Let's put it on a knob for fun. And I'm just going to play with that as everything plays. Well, first we got to turn on that EQ. And where did I put it? There we go. So it just creates movement in the sound. It's really cool. Like if you listen to everything as it's playing, it's really rudimentary, but let's check it out. And if you followed my tutorial on whether you put filters before or after a reverb effect for an effect purpose, sounds kind of redundant, but if you decide to put, you know, the general rule of thumb is you want to put your filter effect after the reverb so that it can resonate off the reverb, which is sort of like creating white noise, but it's creating reverb noise, which is different. It sounds like reverb as opposed to shh noise. So let's listen to how that actually changes. There's a Valhalla room on here. We'll turn this off again. We'll listen to it without the filter automation happening. We'll just listen to it with the reverb now. Love it. I love Valhalla Room. It is my workhorse. I have all these other fancy pants reverbs that I use, but I pretty much am always grabbing Valhalla Room. I use these other ones for very specific things, but not nearly as much as I use Valhalla Room. It's beautiful. It's transparent. It's clean. It's stupid proof if I'm feeling stupid, and very often I feel stupid in the studio. So, you know, I use it a lot. The other ones are just, you know, for very specific things. All right, anyway, so let's check it out now. Let's check it out. Let's check out the sound as I automate this filter frequency point, and then I'll show you on a regular EQ what that would be like. Now, typically that effect that I just showed you is achieved with a phaser. People do this shit with a phaser. And I'm like, why would you do it? Like, I love phasers and everything. I really do. In fact, I have probably the best one known to man called Phase Mistress by, you know, Sound Toys. And it's a great sounding thing. It's just, you can't control it. You can't really, well, I mean, yeah, now that I think about it, you can control it. But with a phaser, it's sort of unpredictable. Like the phaser, you know, has how many pole fucking vaulting filters do you have in sequence, like how much resonance you're gonna get. It's just confusing. Like I could sit here and I could, you know, probably achieve the same effect. We'll take that off, or take this off, and then we'll turn the modulation down and then just move the frequency up and down, which will create the same effect. Now, I'm going to be honest, that's another way to do the same thing. But a phaser takes out a lot more, because in exchange for a boost, you're getting a bunch of notches throughout the frequency spectrum, and it's not as controllable or predictable, but it is very cool. It's something that you can try as well. But for me, I tend to prefer something more predictable. Like, I could just have this, and then, you know, I just have it on the sound, and gotta enable it. I just love that. Personally, for me, that is the shit. The other way that you can do this, which is a totally fine way to do it, since we have sidechaining, it might not sound as good, is what I would do is I would create a send, and I would send, you know, to like a, just that send, and we'll not do that, but do that again, and then show it, show me, and then like reso auto. And then all we do is we just take this guy, we duplicate him over, and we get rid of this guy because we're not using him, and we make sure that he's off on this guy because he's not, and then we come back over here, and then we make sure he's on because, or she's on, or it's on, because you don't want to offend people. Anyway, so what you would do is, like, you could do it a bit more surgically. You could treat it much more as an effect. And since you're not going to be drawing the filter that low, you could clean up your low end by just having it cut that low end that you don't need. So just keep it right there. And maybe you don't want any top end around that there either, just have it do that. And then let's listen to it, as it blends in. And just turn that send all the way up because we'll volume it in. So I feel like that EQ kind of messed with it a little bit. No, it made it fine. It was fine. And then, like, the cool thing about using the send technique, and this is just like I'm ballparking it. I could keep it up here and see if I can get away with that, keep that like that, and maybe it still works. Right? And then you can control like the volume of it. It could even just be like a character layer. Just like your original synth didn't have that mid-ranginess, so you just created a separate kind of surgical layer. And the cool thing about what you can do here is you could then, put it into like another reverb, or I would put it in like Ubermod and then put it through the diffusion thing and then just like do that, make it sound weird. So now it has like a little bit of a delay on it. You get this weird fucking this thing that it doesn't cause. So what I would do is I would take the filter, put it after the effect. So admittedly doesn't sound very good, washes it a bit, and then we just like do that. And then maybe that doesn't work, so you're like, okay, I'll try reverb instead, which is kind of the same thing we had earlier. It's lagging too much, so let's make it tighter so it follows that automation a little bit better. And then you get the original reverb off. Even like you could make it mono, that way it's separate from our bass, which I think is more wide. what's really cool about what I just achieved there is like in terms of a mix, that leaves a lot of real estate open for some other stuff. And it sounds dense, surprisingly dense. I don't know why, it just does. But so I wanted to show you 2 other ways that you can do a similar thing. Now, the one way that I like to do uses a very specific plugin, but you can achieve, actually before that, I wanted to show you with a regular EQ, because, you know, for those of you who don't, you know that that's the same thing. All I'm doing is just this, and I'm sweeping back and forth, and it creates movement, as long as I put it after the reverb and before LFO tool. So let's check. Like maybe you could get creative and you could have them in series, and then like you could just link them together and you get something. Typically, for whatever reason, having a boost really close to a cut like that tends to be somewhat pleasing. People like that. Really cool stuff. You can do that. I remember the first time I saw somebody do that, they did it with FabFilter Volcano, and I had no fucking clue what he was doing. I just didn't know what was going on. So the other way that you can do this is if you own a multiband distortion unit like Mall. And I'm saying Mall specifically because I would put Mall on Ascend, because Mall has filters. Let me show you. Has all these filters like that you can control the bands of, but they're not linked together. They're not like phase linked. So if this goes all the way up, it doesn't affect the other one's cutoff points. Same thing for these ones. So what I like to do is I like to disable the middle bands. And you can imagine how you might do this with just an EQ placed before a distortion. If you can't achieve this, you can just do the same thing with an EQ placed before a distortion on Ascend. And what you do is you're just like, okay, yeah, I want to distort it. And then you're like, okay, cool. And you just take that, make the cutoff kind of thin. And then all you do is you just drive it to heck. Drive it to heck. Turn that. There's reverb on there somewhere. Turn that off. So same idea. Sounds really cool. I mean, that one would take some finessing. But if you can't do it that way, you can just take an EQ, make it into a bandpass, and then like turn the resonance up on one part of it, and not both. I don't know if that's necessary. And then just run it into like a single band distortion, like, I don't know, Decapitator. And then you just have this. Same thing, really cool way. There's just like I don't know. I just showed you a bunch of different ways you can do it. So hopefully, you know, that's something that you end up using in your mixes. Maybe you find a point where it's like, yeah, I need to definitely do that, because one of the things that a lot of EDM producers suffer from is creating movement in their tracks. And that's one of the many ways that you can create movement in your track. And you could have like the first like 16 bars of a track not have that on it. And then like maybe when your drums come in, that thing starts. And just imagine the kind of movement that would create. It's really cool effect. I use it all the time because it's awesome, and you know, it's dope. Dope as so. I don't even know if you can cuss on YouTube. I don't know what the repercussions for that are, but you know, if you like that, thumbs up if you like it. Thumbs down if you're a hater. I don't know why you'd hate me, but and if you're new to my channel, subscribe to my channel. We are totally not desperate at all for subscribers. We have a lot of people that watch the content, that find it useful. They're writing reviews on Amazon about it. Unverified reviews, which are kind of useless, but someday we'll get those verified ones. And so we'll see you guys around.